I swore I'd never be this woman. I swore I'd protect my son, from pain. From shame. From people like me. But I watched the lines blur. I let them blur. And when Nathan saw, God. When he saw, I didn't stop it. I didn't scream, or run, or make it right. I just stood there, like a coward, like a monster in her own home. I lost their trust. Their love, for what? For a feeling I should have buried years ago. He stood there for maybe 2 seconds, maybe 5. Long enough for my body to tense, my heart to stop, and my thoughts to scatter like water droplets sliding down my skin. Sorry, he stammered, turning his head but not fully turning away. I didn't know you were in here. But that was the lie. His voice said, accident. But his eyes, they didn't blink. They didn't panic. They lingered. And I hated how I felt. Exposed. Ashamed. Alive. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, nothing's been the same. Not the way I walk past him in the hallway. Not the way my breath shortens when I hear his footsteps. Not the way his eyes find mine, and hold. Liam isn't my son. He's my ex-husband's son. 25. Back in town. Staying with me, temporarily, while he figures his life out. I agreed, thinking I'd be kind. A temporary roof. Nothing more. But now, every time I pass that bathroom mirror, I see something else. A woman who stood there. And didn't stop him. This isn't a love story. This isn't about blame. This is about how one moment, one look, can undo years of control. And if you've ever stared at your own reflection and didn't recognize the woman looking back, then maybe you'll understand what I'm about to say. I used to believe I was strong. I held our family together when my husband couldn't. I kept the holidays alive when no one showed up on time. I smiled when I felt invisible. And when the marriage ended, I told myself it was better this way. No screaming, no cheating. Just silence. The kind that creeps into your bones and builds a home there. When Greg left, the house didn't feel emptier. It just felt quieter. Like it had finally caught up with the silence between us. I stayed. Not for him, not for the past, but for Nathan, my son. 17. Sharp-eyed, kind-hearted. He deserved stability, even if I didn't feel stable myself. Then, out of nowhere, Liam called. My dad said you wouldn't mind if I stayed for a bit. Just till I figure things out. I hesitated. But I said yes. Because that's what women like me do, we accommodate. We make room. Even when we have none left. So Liam came, with a bag full of clothes and a voice deeper than I remembered. He was no longer the awkward teenager at Thanksgiving dinners. He was grown, confident, unapologetically present. At first, we kept our distance. Polite, reserved. He called me Rachel, not stepmom. Which was fine, I never asked to be one. But sometimes, late at night, I caught myself listening for his footsteps. And I didn't know if I was comforted or terrified. We existed like housemates. He kept mostly to his room. I kept mostly to mine. Our interactions were casual, surface level. Coffee's fresh. Need help with the groceries? Thanks. It should have stayed that way. But loneliness is a tricky thing. It doesn't scream, it seeps. It finds you in quiet mornings and long, echoing nights. I'd catch glimpses of Liam in passing, shirt damp from a morning run. Headphones around his neck, towel slung carelessly over his shoulder. He was all grown up now, a man. Still respectful, still careful, but no longer just Greg's son. One night, I was making tea in the kitchen. He walked in, half asleep, shirtless. I turned away too quickly, spilling hot water over my hand. He rushed forward. "Are you okay?" grabbing my wrist before I could say anything. His touch was gentle, but firm. We locked eyes. And for a second, I forgot how to breathe. I pulled away. Too fast. He apologized, said goodnight, disappeared into the hallway. I stood there, shaking, not from pain, but from the realization that something had shifted. This wasn't about attraction, not yet. It was something deeper. A recognition of two people who were both out of place. Two people who didn't belong anywhere, but somehow found themselves under the same roof, hearing the same silence. I went to bed that night feeling more awake than I had in months. And I hated that part of me didn't want it to stop. It happened on a Tuesday morning. Nathan had left early for school. I had the house to myself, or so I thought. I turned on the shower, letting the water steam the small bathroom. It was my ritual. 15 minutes where I didn't have to be anything for anyone. No labels, no roles, just warm water and quiet. I was rinsing shampoo from my hair when the door creaked. I froze. At first, I thought maybe it was the wind or the old hinges. But then, footsteps. Slow, hesitant. "Hello?" I called out, heart pounding. No response. And then he was there. Liam. His eyes widened in surprise. Or maybe something else. He didn't speak. He didn't immediately turn around. Time slowed. My hands instinctively moved to cover myself, but it was already too late. He saw me, not just my body. Me. I could feel his gaze like heat across my skin, not lustful, not crude, but intentional. I didn't know you were in here," he said finally, voice low. But he didn't move. I should have yelled, thrown something, demanded he leave. Instead, I stared back. Just long enough to make everything more complicated. When he finally turned away, it wasn't in a panic. It was reluctant, controlled. Like he was choosing to walk away, not because he had to, but because he thought he should. The door clicked shut. And I leaned against the wall, water pouring down, mixing with something colder, something I couldn't name. Shame? Guilt? Or the terrifying spark of something I hadn't felt in years? My body trembled, not from fear, but from how alive I suddenly felt. Not safe, not okay, but undeniably present. That was the moment everything changed. The moment silence turned into tension. And tension became the thing I couldn't unfeel. I told myself it meant nothing. That it was just a mistake. But deep down, I already knew. Accidents don't linger like that. And eyes don't lie. I spent the rest of the day pretending nothing happened. I folded laundry that didn't need folding, rearranged spices in the cabinet alphabetically. Anything to keep my hands busy, to keep my mind from replaying what happened in the shower. But it looped anyway. Not the moment itself. The look. That quiet, measured pause in his eyes. Not shock. Not embarrassment. Just awareness. As if something unspoken had been confirmed. When I saw Liam again that evening, he didn't say a word about it. He greeted me like always, polite, calm, respectful. But something had shifted in the way he moved through the room. He wasn't avoiding me. He wasn't uncomfortable. If anything, he was more present than ever. He lingered longer in the kitchen, made small talk while I cooked. Asked how my day was. Laughed a little more than usual. And I played along. Smiling, nodding, pretending I didn't notice how his eyes sometimes settled on me a beat too long. That night, as I brushed my teeth, I caught myself in the mirror. Hair still damp from an evening shower, a loose t-shirt falling off one shoulder. And in that instant, I hated how I looked. Not because I felt unattractive, but because I knew I was hoping he might pass the hallway again. That's when the guilt hit. Liam was not mine, not in blood, not in name. But he was never meant to be someone I saw like this. I crawled into bed, curling in on myself like I could press the feeling away. But feelings don't vanish. They grow in the silence. And silence was all I had. The next morning, we passed each other in the hallway. A quick glance. A quiet, good morning. And a flicker in his eyes that said, we both remember. The thing about crossing a line is that once your toe brushes over it, the ground never feels the same again. We didn't talk about what happened. Not once. But something unspoken had settled between us, thick, electric, unshakable. At first, it was nothing. A brush of fingers when passing the salt. His hand on my lower back as I squeezed past him in the narrow hallway. The way he stood just a little too close when we washed dishes side by side. Each moment, small enough to dismiss. But my body noticed. It kept score. Tension curled at the base of my spine, tightening each time I heard his footsteps on the stairs. He began waking earlier. Making coffee. Waiting until I came downstairs so we could drink it together, silent. Facing the window, pretending not to notice the way our knees nearly touched under the table. One afternoon, I dropped a dish towel. Liam bent down at the same time I did. Our hands met, stayed. Neither of us pulled away. His fingers were warm. Mine trembled. He looked at me. That same look, not forceful, not pleading. Just open. Like he was waiting for me to flinch. I didn't. The moment ended with a blink, a smile, a step back. But something had landed. Later that night, while chopping vegetables, I cut my thumb. Not deep, but enough to sting. Liam rushed to grab a towel, pressing it to my hand. His touch was steady, familiar. He didn't speak. Neither did I. But when he let go, I missed the weight of his hand more than I should have. It was late. Nathan had gone to a friend's house. The house was quiet in that particular way it gets when you know no one else is coming home. I was curled up on the couch, book in hand, though I hadn't turned the page in 15 minutes. Liam walked in from the kitchen, holding 2 mugs. Chamomile, he said, offering one. You looked like you needed it. I took it, our fingers brushing again. It shouldn't have meant anything, but it did. He sat across from me, silent. No TV, no music, just the hum of the fridge and something heavier pressing against the air. I felt it before I looked up, his eyes on me. When I met his gaze, he didn't look away. Rachel, he said, my name quiet, like he was still deciding if he had the right to say it out loud. I know I shouldn't say this. I didn't breathe. But sometimes it feels like you see me. It was such a simple sentence. And yet, it cracked something open in me. He leaned forward. Not close enough to touch, but close enough to feel the pull between us. I don't want to make things harder for you, he whispered. But I think about that morning, every day. Not because of what I saw. Because of how you looked at me. My heart raced. I should have stopped him. Should have set a line. Instead, I sat frozen again, just like before. He didn't try to kiss me. Didn't move another inch. He just said, I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know. Then he stood, nodded once, and left the room. I stared into my mug, hands shaking. Not because he'd said too much, but because I'd wanted to hear it. It happened the next morning. The air in the house felt different. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was the way I kept replaying Liam's voice in my head. Because of how you looked at me. I had barely slept. The moment haunted me, not for what he said, but for how much I wanted it to be true. I was in the kitchen, making coffee. Liam walked in, shirt wrinkled, hair a little messy like he hadn't slept either. We didn't speak. But something in the silence was louder than any words. He reached around me to grab a mug, his arm brushing mine. I didn't move away. I should have. But I didn't. Our eyes met, just for a second. But in that second, I let something flicker, something I couldn't take back. Soft, vulnerable, open. And then, the sound of footsteps. Nathan. He froze in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder. His face blank, but not unaware. His eyes darted between us, between the closeness, the stillness. Liam stepped back, too late. Morning, Nathan said, flat, sharp. Morning, I echoed, but my voice cracked. He walked to the fridge, grabbed a juice, didn't look at either of us. Didn't say another word. The silence was unbearable. Not the usual teenage silence. This one was heavy, knowing. He left a minute later. Door closed behind him. I stood there, coffee forgotten, heart hammering. Liam didn't say anything. He didn't have to. The look Nathan gave me, just one glance, was enough. Not angry. Not confused. Just disappointed. And that was worse. That look stayed with me all day. Followed me into every room. Haunted every reflection. Because I hadn't touched Liam. Hadn't kissed him. Hadn't done anything technically wrong. But my son saw the truth anyway. And that truth shattered something inside me. Not because I got caught. But because, for the first time, I felt like I deserved it. I started avoiding him. No more shared coffee. No more lingering glances. No more excuses to be in the same room. If Liam noticed, he didn't say anything. But he changed too. He no longer lingered in the kitchen. No more gentle smiles. No more casual touches. He gave me space. And somehow, that hurt more. Nathan's silence, too, became sharper. He didn't ask questions. Didn't accuse. But I could feel it, his retreat. His eyes no longer searched for reassurance. He looked through me now, like someone he didn't quite recognize anymore. I wanted to fix it. To go back. To rewind time to before the bathroom, before the tea, before the look. But the thing about a line once crossed. You can't unstep it. You can only walk further away. Or fall deeper in. One night, I heard Liam's door open. His footsteps in the hallway. I held my breath, hoping he would pass. He did. But then he paused. And for a brief moment, I imagined him knocking. He didn't. He kept walking. The ache in my chest didn't come from relief. I curled into bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering how something so brief, so wordless, could undo me. In the morning, I found a note on the counter. His handwriting, simple. Thank you for letting me stay. I think it's best I leave early. No explanation. No confrontation. Just gone. I stood there, fingers trembling around that scrap of paper. Knowing it was the right thing. But still feeling like I'd been left behind. Again. Because I didn't want Liam. I wanted something to matter again. And now. Even the silence felt too loud. I haven't seen Liam since he left. He didn't say goodbye in person. And maybe that was for the best. Nathan hasn't brought it up. He's polite, respectful. But something between us broke quietly. Like a hairline crack in glass you only notice once it's too late to fix. I still think about that morning. The look in Liam's eyes. The stillness between us. And the way it made me feel like I was more than invisible. Even if just for a moment. It wasn't love. It wasn't lust, either. It was something murkier. Something I'm still afraid to name. People think betrayal only comes from action. From touches and kisses and whispered secrets. But I know better now. Sometimes, betrayal is silence. It's not looking away when you should. It's feeling something you promised yourself you wouldn't. I betrayed myself long before Liam stepped into that bathroom. And maybe that's the hardest part to admit. I don't know if I'll ever tell Nathan the truth. Maybe one day, when he's older. Maybe never. But I'll carry it. The memory. The heat. The shame. The ache. And if you've ever stood at the edge of something dangerous, not because you wanted to fall, but because for the first time, you finally felt seen, then maybe, just maybe, you understand me.